The laughter started before the old man even reached the counter. It echoed through the dim, overcrowded animal shelter like a cruel chorus, sharp, careless, and unforgettable. People turned their heads, whispering and smirking as the frail, gray-bearded Navy veteran stepped forward, his worn boots scraping against the tile floor. In his trembling arms, he carried nothing yet, but his eyes were locked on something everyone else had already given up on. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be heard. His name was Walter Hayes, a retired Navy SEAL who had seen more darkness than most could imagine. War had carved deep lines into his face, and silence had become his closest companion. Years ago, he had commanded respect without saying a word. Now, people barely noticed him, except when they laughed. In the far corner of the shelter, behind a rusted metal gate, lay a dog no one wanted. The sign on the cage read, Max, 12 years old, terminal condition. His fur was patchy, his ribs showed through thin skin, and his breathing came in shallow, uneven bursts. Volunteers had stopped trying to find him a home weeks ago. Max wasn't just old, he was dying. Walter didn't see a lost cause. He saw something familiar. The shelter worker behind the desk shook her head gently as Walter pointed toward Max. She explained the situation in a quiet, apologetic tone, mentioning the vet reports, the costs, and the inevitable outcome. She tried to steer him toward younger, healthier dogs. But Walter stood firm. His voice, when he finally spoke, was soft but unshakable. He wasn't there for a perfect dog. He was there for Max. That's when the laughter broke out louder. A young couple nearby whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, questioning why anyone would waste money on a dog that wouldn't last a month. Someone else chuckled, saying the old man must be lonely or confused. The words hung in the air like poison. Walter ignored them. He completed the paperwork with steady hands, each signature a quiet act of defiance against a world that had already decided this dog's fate. When the cage door finally opened, Max didn't even lift his head. It took several moments before Walter gently reached in, wrapping his arms around the fragile body. The dog was lighter than expected, almost weightless, as if he were already halfway gone. But then something happened. As Walter held him close, Max's tail moved, just slightly. A weak, uncertain wag. It was small, almost invisible, but it was enough. Walter took Max home to a modest house on the outskirts of a quiet town in Montana. The place was simple, almost empty, except for a few photographs of younger days, team members, missions, memories frozen in time. There was no laughter in that house. No warmth. Until Max arrived. The first few days were hard. Max refused food, barely drank water, and spent most of his time lying still, eyes half closed. Walter slept beside him on the floor, waking every hour to check his breathing. He cooked fresh meals, carefully feeding him by hand when necessary. He spoke to him constantly, not in commands, but in quiet, reassuring tones. Something began to shift. It wasn't dramatic at first. A slightly longer walk across the room. A few more bites of food. A deeper breath. Walter noticed every change, every flicker of life returning. And in those small victories, something inside him began to heal too. Weeks passed. The vet had predicted days, maybe a couple of weeks at most. But Max was still there. Still fighting. Walter started taking him outside each morning, carrying him at first, then slowly encouraging him to walk. The fresh mountain air seemed to awaken something deep within the dog. His eyes grew brighter. His steps, though unsteady, became more determined. Neighbors began to notice. At first, they watched from a distance, curious about the old man and his unlikely companion. Then one day, a young boy named Caleb approached cautiously, asking if he could pet Max. Walter nodded. Max, who once couldn't lift his head, gently wagged his tail as the boy's small hand touched his fur. Word spread. People who had once ignored Walter now stopped to talk. They asked questions, offered help, shared smiles. The house that had been silent for years slowly filled with life. And at the center of it all was Max, the dog no one wanted. But the real transformation wasn't just physical. Walter, the man who had shut himself off from the world, began to open up. He told stories. He laughed again, quietly at first, then more freely. The scars of his past didn't disappear, but they no longer defined him. Max had given him something he thought he had lost forever: purpose. Months went by. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Walter realized something incredible. Max wasn't dying anymore. The vet confirmed it later that week. Whatever condition had once been labeled terminal had stabilized. It wasn't a miracle in the medical sense, but it was something close. Care, love, and relentless dedication had done what no one thought possible. Max wasn't just surviving. He was living. And so was Walter. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your support helps spread stories of hope and compassion that the world desperately needs. The same people who had laughed that day in the shelter began to hear about the story. Some didn't believe it at first. Others felt a quiet sense of guilt. But eventually, many came to see it for themselves: the old Navy SEAL and the once dying dog, walking side by side, stronger than anyone had imagined. Before this story ends, I have a special request for you. Comment, "Second chances matter," if you believe every life deserves one. Walter often sat on his porch in the evenings, Max resting beside him, watching the sky change colors. There were no words needed. Their bond went beyond anything that could be explained. Two souls, both once broken, had found a way to heal each other. The laughter that once followed Walter had been replaced by something else: respect, admiration, and quiet inspiration. Not because he had done something extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but because he had chosen kindness when it was easier to walk away. Max lived far longer than anyone expected. And every extra day felt like a gift, a reminder that life doesn't always follow the rules we set for it. In the end, it wasn't about saving a dog. It was about rediscovering humanity. If this story moved you even a little, don't scroll away without engaging. Like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters.